Blood Meridian of Suits. Blood Meridian of Suits. A novel. Part 5. Meridian. Author June Calloway. Chapter 17. Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires, Argentina. 2 days later. The Rio de la Plata at dawn was the color of old pewter. Marcus stood on the Costanera Norte and watched the river move, wide and flat and brown, the kind of river that has no visible far shore, that blurs at the horizon into something that could be sky, or could be water, or could be the place where one becomes the other. In the distance, a container ship moved southward, heavy in the water, its running lights still on in the early gray. He had been in Buenos Aires for 16 hours. Nadia was in a safe house in Palermo. Cole had gone quiet since the meeting with Wynne, sending one message at 3 in the morning that said only, "Moving. Don't contact." The man Marcus had come to find lived in San Telmo, in a narrow house on a cobblestone street that had not changed significantly since the 19th century. His name was Eduardo Restrepo. He was 69 years old. He had been, for 11 years, the South American logistics coordinator for Castellan's network. He had also, according to Hartman's records, stopped receiving payments from the network 4 years ago. Abruptly, without explanation. Restrepo answered his own door. He was a small man, white-haired, with the careful movements of someone managing chronic pain. He looked at Marcus for a long moment, without speaking.
"I wondered how long it would take someone to come,"
Restrepo said. "You knew someone would?" Marcus asked.
"I knew something was moving,"
Restrepo said.
"You hear things, even in retirement. Even here,"
Restrepo said. He stepped back from the door.
"Come in."
They sat in the kitchen. Restrepo poured coffee without asking and set it on the table between them. "You left the network 4 years ago," Marcus said.
"They let me leave,"
Restrepo said.
"There is a difference,"
Restrepo added. He wrapped both hands around his coffee cup.
"I was allowed to retire because I had become inconvenient. Not dangerous, simply inconvenient,"
Restrepo said. He looked at Marcus.
"I had started asking questions that a man in my position was not supposed to ask."
"What kind of questions?" Marcus asked.
"The kind that begin with, 'Where do they go?'"
Restrepo said. He said it very quietly.
"I managed the routing, the documentation, the port clearances. For 11 years, I told myself I was a logistician, a coordinator,"
Restrepo said. He looked at his hands.
"And then one night I asked myself, what exactly am I coordinating? And I followed the answer all the way to the end,"
Restrepo said. A long silence.
"And I could not unfollow it,"
Restrepo whispered. "You have documentation?" Marcus asked.
"I have everything,"
Restrepo said simply.
11 years of routing records for the South American operation, names of port officials, names of receiving parties, destination addresses in the United States, in Western Europe, in East Asia,"
Restrepo said. He looked at Marcus steadily.
"I kept copies because I knew that if I ever left, I would need them, either as protection,"
He paused.
"or as penance,"
Restrepo said. "Why didn't you go to the authorities?" Marcus asked. Restrepo looked at him with something between patience and sadness.
"Which authorities?"
Restrepo asked.
"The Argentine Federal Police, who have 3 officers on Castellan's payroll in this city alone. The American DEA, who coordinate with a man named Wynne, who coordinates with a senator named Aldridge."
Restrepo said. He shook his head slowly.
I'm 69 years old, and I live alone in a house in San Telmo, and I am still alive. That is because I have been very quiet for 4 years.
Restrepo said. He looked at Marcus.
And because whoever came eventually, I wanted it to be someone who had nothing to lose.
Restrepo said. Mali told you I was coming, Marcus said.
Mali told me to wait.
Restrepo said.
She did not tell me for whom, but she said, when he arrives, give him everything, hold nothing back.
Restrepo said. He stood.
I will get the files,
Restrepo said. He was gone for 10 minutes. Marcus sat in the kitchen and listened to the city wake up outside. The sound of Buenos Aires in the early morning, cobblestones and coffee, and the particular quality of light in a city built by people who left other places and needed somewhere to become someone else. Restrepo returned with a metal box, old and heavy. He set it on the table and opened it. Inside, 4 external hard drives, 2 binders of printed documentation, and a sealed envelope.
The envelope,
Restrepo said,
is something separate, something I found 3 years ago that I have not known what to do with.
Restrepo said. He looked at it for a moment.
It concerns a shipment from Buenos Aires in 2018, a specific shipment,
Restrepo said. He pushed the box across the table.
Open the envelope last, after everything else, when you are ready for it.
Restrepo said. What's in it? Marcus asked. Restrepo looked at him with the eyes of a man carrying something he had carried too long.
The name of a person who was on that 2018 shipment,
Restrepo said.
A person who arrived at a destination in Maryland,
Restrepo said. A pause.
A person who, according to the receiving documentation, was subsequently placed in a household in the Washington, D.C. area,
Restrepo said. His voice was very careful, very precise.
The household of a federal employee,
Restrepo whispered. He looked at Marcus directly.
Whose name you already know,
Restrepo said. Marcus looked at the sealed envelope. He did not open it yet. He picked up the metal box and stood. Thank you, Marcus said. Restrepo nodded once. He looked older than when Marcus had arrived.
Mr. Vane,
Restrepo said as Marcus reached the kitchen door. Marcus stopped.
I coordinated the movement of, I don't know the exact number, thousands of people over 11 years,
Restrepo said. His voice was very quiet, very steady.
I told myself for a long time that I didn't know. Then I told myself it was too late to undo. Then I told myself that staying quiet was protecting myself, and that protecting myself was protecting my ability to eventually do something,
Restrepo said. He looked at the table where the metal box had been.
None of those things were true,
Restrepo said. Marcus stood in the kitchen doorway. No, Marcus said. They weren't, Marcus added. He walked out. Chapter 18. The Envelope. Buenos Aires. 2 hours later. He opened the envelope in the safe house in Palermo while Nadia watched. He read it once, looked up at Nadia, looked back down, read it again.
What is it?
Nadia asked. Marcus set the paper on the table between them. It was a receiving document, the kind of document that should never exist, that described the delivery of a human being with the administrative language of a logistics transfer. A name, an age, a destination address in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and the name of the receiving household. Nadia read it. She set it down very carefully, the way you set down something that might break if handled wrong.
Raymond Fitch.
Nadia said. Raymond Fitch, Marcus confirmed. His voice was entirely flat. The flatness of a man who has moved past the range of feelings that have names. My attorney, who was paid $420,000 to throw my trial, Marcus said. He looked at the document. He was not only paid to betray me, was a participant, a customer, Marcus said. He stopped. The room was very still.
The person named in the document.
Nadia said carefully.
Do you know where they are now?
Nadia asked. No, Marcus said.
But Restrepo's records have the full receiving chain. From the document, it should be possible to trace.
Marcus said. Nadia looked at him with something careful in her expression, something that was measuring him.
Marcus,
Nadia said.
what are you going to do with this?
Nadia asked. He looked at the document for a long time. Raymond Fitch, his attorney, the man who had sat beside him in a courtroom and told him not to react, who had straightened his Italian cufflinks and said, I did what I could, who had accepted $420,000 and a human being in exchange for sending an innocent man to federal prison. I'm going to find the person in this document, Marcus said. First, Marcus added. He looked at Nadia. And then I'm going to make sure Raymond Fitch is in the next file we send to Okafor, Marcus said. Nadia held his gaze.
And after that?
Nadia asked quietly. Marcus looked at the river visible through the safe house window. The Rio de la Plata, wide and pewter-colored, blurring at the horizon into the sky. After that, Marcus said. I don't know, Marcus said. Chapter 19. Aldridge. Georgetown, Washington, D.C., 5 days later. Senator Charles Aldridge lived in a federal-style townhouse on N Street in Georgetown, in a house that was tasteful and old and entirely consistent with the public image of a man who had spent 40 years in public service with distinction and integrity. Marcus stood on the sidewalk across the street at 7 in the evening and looked at the lit windows of the second floor. Wynne had delivered. Reluctantly, precisely, with the wounded efficiency of a man honoring terms he had not anticipated agreeing to. Marcus's conviction had been referred to the D.C. Circuit Court for emergency review. Castellan had been detained in Bangkok, the arrest clean and public and impossible to walk back. The machine was, for the first time in 30 years, eating itself. But Aldridge was still in his Georgetown townhouse, still in the lit second-floor windows, still, as far as the public was concerned, the distinguished senior senator from Virginia, the man who had championed anti-trafficking legislation, who had held 17 years of committee hearings, who had shaken hands with survivors and wept at the podium with the practiced sincerity of a man who understood that emotion deployed correctly was its own form of power. Marcus crossed the street. A housekeeper led him up to a sitting room on the second floor where a fire was burning low in the fireplace, and Senator Charles Aldridge was sitting in an armchair with a blanket across his knees and the appearance of a man who had recently become much older than he was. The cancer had been at work. What was in the armchair was something diminished, still recognizable, still carrying the architecture of that authority in the set of the jaw and the directness of the eyes, but hollowed in the way of people whose bodies are being slowly disassembled from the inside. Aldridge looked at Marcus without speaking for a moment.
"Sit down,"
Aldridge said. Marcus sat. They looked at each other across the low fire.
"You're younger than I expected,"
Aldridge said. "You're older," Marcus said.
"I've been told,"
Aldridge said.
"that you want a confession."
Aldridge said. "I want the truth," Marcus said. "A confession is just the truth with a legal framework around it," Marcus said.
"What's the difference in your view?"
Aldridge asked. "A confession is for courts," Marcus said. "The truth is for the people who deserve it," Marcus said. He held the old man's gaze. Daniel Cho's daughters, Ade's daughter, the 23 people in the Rotterdam container, the 17 in the one we documented, Marcus said. A pause. "My daughter." Aldridge was quiet for a long moment. The fire shifted. A log settled.
"I started this,"
Aldridge said.
"because I genuinely believed, that certain things needed to happen in the world that could not happen through official channels."
Aldridge said. His voice was measured, not apologetic, explanatory.
The Cold War created infrastructure, networks, relationships between governments and operators that existed outside the official record.
Aldridge said. He looked at the fire.
When the Cold War ended, that infrastructure didn't disappear. It adapted. It found new uses.
Aldridge said. "Human beings," Marcus said. "As new uses," Marcus added.
"That was Castellan,"
Aldridge said.
"I provided the protection, the legislative cover, the oversight structure that ensured certain investigations went in certain directions."
Aldridge said. He looked at Marcus.
"I did not ship people,"
Aldridge said. "You made it possible for people to be shipped," Marcus said. "For 30 years, while chairing hearings about stopping it," Marcus said. His voice was very controlled. "You stood at podiums and wept," Marcus said. Aldridge looked at his hands on the blanket. Old hands. The hands of a man who had shaken every hand that mattered in Washington for 4 decades.
"Yes,"
Aldridge said, simply.
"I did,"
Aldridge added. "Daniel Cho," Marcus said. Aldridge's eyes moved to the fire.
"Your partner came too close,"
Aldridge said.
"He had found the routing connection between your company's logistics contracts and Castellan's shell network. He was going to bring it to the FBI."
Aldridge said. A pause.
"That decision was made above my level,"
Aldridge added. "Above your level," Marcus repeated.
"There are people,"
Aldridge said carefully,
"whose names do not appear in any file you have assembled, who have never appeared in any file anyone has assembled, who have been in the architecture of this for longer than I have."
Aldridge said. He looked at Marcus.
"I am not the top, Mr. Vane. I was never the top,"
Aldridge said. The room was very still. Marcus looked at the old man in the armchair, at the fire burning between them. He had come here with a clear idea of what this moment would feel like. He had imagined it across 14 months in a federal prison, across 2 oceans and 4 continents. He had imagined it would feel like arriving somewhere, like an ending. It did not feel like an ending. It felt like a door opening onto another corridor. "Names above you," Marcus said quietly. "Are you going to give them to me?" Marcus asked. Aldridge looked at the fire for a long time.
I am going to die,
Aldridge said.
within this year. The doctors are fairly consistent on that point.
Aldridge said. He looked at Marcus.
I have a daughter, a son, 4 grandchildren.
Aldridge said. A very long pause.
If I give you those names, the people above me will not stop at me. They never have.
Aldridge said. That's not an answer, Marcus said.
No,
Aldridge said.
it isn't.
Aldridge added. He reached for the side table and picked up an envelope. He held it for a moment, the way Graves had held the key, the way Hartman had held the leather folder, the way every person in this story had held the thing they'd been carrying too long before finally letting it go. He held it out to Marcus.
I wrote them down.
Aldridge said.
3 names, everything I know about each of them.
Aldridge said. His hand was steady.
I wrote it down 6 months ago when the diagnosis came, when I understood that the question was no longer whether this would end, but how.
Aldridge said. Marcus took the envelope.
One more thing.
Aldridge said. Marcus waited.
Your daughter,
Aldridge said.
Sophie.
Aldridge said. He looked at Marcus with the directness of a man who has decided to stop managing his expressions.
She draws horses on the backs of receipts.
Aldridge said. A pause.
I know this because when we were building the case against you, we surveilled your home for 4 months. I reviewed the surveillance reports personally.
Aldridge said. His voice was entirely level.
I read a report about a 7-year-old girl who drew horses on the backs of receipts and left them on the kitchen table for her father to find.
Aldridge said. He looked at the fire.
And I signed the authorization anyway.
Aldridge said. The fire burned. Marcus stood. He looked at the old man in the armchair, the dying architect of 30 years of machinery, who had stood at podiums and wept, who had written 3 names in an envelope 6 months ago when the cancer arrived to collect what he owed, who had read a surveillance report about a child's drawings and signed the authorization anyway. He did not say anything. There was nothing to say that the silence did not already contain. He walked out of the Georgetown townhouse and into the cold Washington night. Chapter 20. Publication. Accra, Ghana. 72 hours later. Sarah Okafor published at 6 in the morning, West Africa time. The article was 47,000 words. It ran across 6 parts on the website of the West African Investigative Collective, simultaneously uploaded to mirror servers in Iceland, Estonia, and New Zealand. It was accompanied by 743 supporting documents, 41 hours of audio, and a statement from a former federal prosecutor named Nadia Reyes. By 8 in the morning, it had been shared 600,000 times. By noon, every major news organization in the world had a team working on confirmation. By evening, 3 sitting U.S. senators had called for an independent investigation. By the following morning, Arthur Wynne had resigned. Castellan's lawyers filed emergency motions in Bangkok that were denied before lunch. Raymond Fitch was arrested at his home in McLean, Virginia at 7:15 in the morning in front of his wife and 2 children by federal agents operating under a warrant that had been obtained through a jurisdiction Wynne no longer controlled. Senator Charles Aldridge stated his attorney acknowledged that his cooperation with investigators. He was admitted to Georgetown University Hospital the same afternoon, not under arrest, because a dying man in a hospital bed is not a flight risk, but under a legal framework that ensured that what he knew would be formally recorded before he was no longer able to give it. He died 11 weeks later, on a Tuesday, in a private room. His daughter was with him. The machine did not stop. Machines do not stop. They lose parts. They lose operators. They lose the protection that allows them to run in the dark. But the underlying mechanism, the demand, the money, the human willingness to treat other human beings as cargo, that did not stop. What stopped was the specific arrangement of corruption that had put Marcus Vane in a federal prison for something he didn't do. The D.C. Circuit Court overturned his conviction 6 weeks after publication. The opinion was 42 pages. The word fabricated appeared 11 times. Chapter 21. What Remains. Bethesda, Maryland, 8 weeks after publication. The bakery that Daniel Cho's wife ran was called Flour and Salt. It was on a side street in Bethesda, small and warm, with the particular smell of places that have been making bread for a long time, yeast and warmth, and something older than either. Marcus went on a Thursday morning when it wasn't busy. Jin Cho So was 41 years old. She had her husband's precision in her hands and her daughter's resilience in her face. The face of a woman who had been broken and had reassembled herself, not into what she was before, but into something that could bear more weight. She looked at Marcus when he came in.
Coffee?
Jin Cho asked. Please.
Marcus said.
They sat at the small table near the window. Outside, Bethesda went about its Thursday morning with the calm purposefulness of a suburb that has not been touched by the things that happen elsewhere. His daughters, Marcus said. How are they? Marcus asked.
Older.
Jin Cho said.
They understand more now than they did. That is not always better.
Jin Cho said. She wrapped her hands around her cup.
The older one, Mia, she read the article. All of it. She's 13.
Jin Cho said. A pause.
She asked me if justice means something now that they've been arrested.
Jin Cho said. She looked at Marcus.
What did you tell her?
Jin Cho asked. What did you tell her? Marcus asked. Jin Cho looked out the window.
I told her that justice is not a feeling.
Jin Cho said.
It's a direction.
Jin Cho added. A long pause.
It doesn't bring her father back. It doesn't undo what was done. But it points the world in a direction that is slightly less wrong than it was before.
Jin Cho said. She looked at Marcus.
She didn't find that very satisfying.
Jin Cho said. No. Marcus said. I don't imagine she did. Marcus added. He stayed for an hour. They talked about Daniel, about the man he had been before all of this, the version of him that existed before the night he had sat across a kitchen table with a glass of whiskey he couldn't drink and said a name Marcus was not supposed to remember. When Marcus left, Jin Cho walked him to the door.
What will you do now?
Jin Cho asked. Marcus stood in the doorway of the bakery on the side street in Bethesda. in the thin winter sun, with the smell of bread behind him and the cold air of an ordinary Thursday morning in front of him. He thought about the envelope from Aldridge, the 3 names still in it. The names above Aldridge, above Wynne, above the whole visible architecture of what had been dismantled. He thought about Sophie, who was 8, and who he had not yet seen, because some distances require more than a conviction being overturned to cross. He thought about Nadia, who was in The Hague, who had sent him a message that morning that said only, "There's more. There's always more." "I don't know yet," Marcus said. Jin-Cho nodded, as if this were the only honest answer, and she had expected nothing else.
Daniel used to say
Jin-Cho said quietly.
that the most dangerous men are the ones who've decided they have nothing left to lose.
Jin-Cho said. She looked at Marcus.
But I think the most dangerous men are the ones who found something to lose again and are deciding whether to risk it.
Jin-Cho said. Marcus looked at her. He walked back to his car. Epilogue. Meridian. Location unknown. Sometime later. They will tell you the story ended there. They will tell you that the convictions followed. Castellan sentenced to 31 years in a Thai facility. Wynne's cooperation agreement resulted in 18 months in a federal facility. Fitch disbarred, indicted, awaiting trial. Emeka Bello arrested in Lagos. Peter Fogel in Rotterdam. 11 more across 3 continents. They will tell you that Marcus Vane's name was cleared, that he was publicly exonerated, that he appeared before the D.C. Circuit Court and heard the word fabricated 11 times in 42 pages and walked out of that building into the November sun a free man with a clean record and a life that was, technically, returned to him. They will not tell you about the envelope with 3 names, because the envelope with 3 names has not yet been opened publicly. Because the 3 names in the envelope are people whose removal from the architecture of the world is a more complicated operation than anything Marcus has done so far. They will not tell you about Nadia Reyes, who was in The Hague and then in Geneva, and then somewhere that does not appear on any itinerary, building something she has described to Marcus in a message sent from a number that changes each time, as the next part. They will not tell you about Amara, who is in Lagos, who has taken Ade's manifests and Restrepo's records and is doing something with them that Marcus is not asked about, because he understands, without being told, that some things are better not known in advance. They will not tell you about Sarah Okafor, who published the article and survived the publication, and is now following a financial trail that leads from a shell company in the Cayman Islands to an account that appears, at its final layer, to belong to a charitable foundation based in Geneva, whose board of trustees includes 2 former heads of state. They will tell you that Marcus Vane is living quietly, that he has reconnected with his daughter, slowly, carefully, the way you reconnect with someone who has learned to live without you and must now learn to live with you again. That he has a small apartment in a city that he has not disclosed, with a window that faces east. They will tell you the story ended. Stories do not end. They reach a point where the visible momentum slows, where the events that can be narrated give way to the events that are still becoming, where the people who were moving through the frame move out of it, into the rest of their lives, into the part that no one documents. Marcus Vane is in that part now. The envelope with 3 names is in a drawer. Sophie drew him a horse last week, on the back of a grocery receipt. She left it on his kitchen table when she visited on Saturday. He has not thrown it away, they said. He has not decided yet whether he is done. The machine is still running. Somewhere, at this moment, a container ship is moving across dark water. Somewhere, a man in an expensive suit is straightening his cufflinks. Somewhere, a document is being signed. And somewhere, in a city that does not appear on any itinerary, at a window that faces east, a man who was supposed to be dead is watching the light change and thinking about 3 names written in the hand of a dying senator and deciding, very carefully, how much of himself he is still willing to lose. He has not decided yet. That is the most dangerous thing in the world.